My beloved, when you feel alone, it's not always because the world has abandoned you. Sometimes it's because Allah is calling you back to Him. Loneliness isn't always a punishment. Often it's an invitation, an opening in your heart that Allah created so that only His light can enter. We live in a world full of noise, full of people, yet our hearts still ache in silence. But there is a place where the soul finds rest, where emptiness meets divine mercy. And that is in the words of Allah. There is a surah that speaks directly to the lonely heart. It whispers to those who have cried in the dark and felt unseen. It reminds you that even when the world forgets you, Allah never does. In that surah, Allah tells us, your Lord has not forsaken you, nor has He forgotten. Those words are not history. They are healing. They are meant for every soul that has ever felt abandoned, every believer who has ever wondered if Allah still listens. So when you feel like you're standing alone in this world, open the Qur'an, read this surah, let the words fall upon your heart like rain on dry earth. Because Allah is not far. He never was. Sometimes loneliness is the veil before His nearness, and pain is the bridge that leads you back home to Him. When you feel alone, it is not always a sign that something is wrong with you. Sometimes it's Allah's most tender way of calling you closer. There comes a point in every soul's journey where silence becomes the only language left. And in that silence, the heart begins to ache for something it cannot name. That ache is the remembrance of Allah trying to awaken inside you. We try to fill it with people, distractions, achievements, and noise, but nothing fits, nothing heals, nothing lasts, because that space was never meant for anyone but Him. Loneliness in its deepest truth is not a void, it's an invitation. It's Allah saying, come back to me. I am here. There is a surah that speaks directly to that loneliness, a surah that descended at a moment of deep sorrow and silence. It begins not with blame, but with comfort. It begins with love. By the morning brightness, and by the night when it covers with darkness. In those verses, Allah swears by the morning and the night, as if to remind us that both the light and the darkness are sacred, both are necessary. Both are part of your story. You are not forgotten in the night, just as you are not forsaken in the day. The surah continues, your Lord has not forsaken you, nor has He forgotten. Imagine hearing those words when you feel unseen, when your prayers have gone unanswered, when your tears have no witness. These are not words of theology. They are words of love, meant to cradle a heart that has forgotten how to hope. We all have moments where we feel abandoned by people, by life, by the world. But when you read this surah, you realize something profound. You were never alone. Even your loneliness was being watched, measured, and held by the one who knows the secrets of the heart. Sometimes Allah allows isolation, not to punish you, but to purify you. He removes the noise so that you can hear His whisper. He takes away what distracts you, so that you can finally see what truly matters. And when everything falls silent, when there's no one left to turn to, that's when the Qur'an begins to speak to you. Not just in sound, but in presence. This surah is not just revelation, it's reassurance. It's Allah's way of reminding the prophets and all of us that silence is not absence and delay is not denial when you feel like the world has turned its back, when even your du'as seem to float unanswered into the air. Remember that Allah's timing is perfect. What you call delay, He calls preparation. What you see as emptiness, He sees as space for something greater to come. Every tear you shed in solitude is not lost. It is collected by the one who counts every heartbeat, who knows every unspoken word. When Allah said, and the hereafter is better for you than the first, He wasn't just speaking of the afterlife. He was speaking of hope. He was telling your heart that what is coming is better than what has passed, that this pain, this moment, this night, it will not last forever. And that promise is not only for the prophet, it's for you. It's for every person who has ever looked up at the ceiling in the dark and whispered, Ya Allah, do you hear me? Yes, He does, always. But you must open the Qur'an when you feel most broken. You must read this surah, not with your eyes, but with your heart. Let its rhythm soften your fear. Let its words remind you that you are seen, that you are loved, that you are chosen. When Allah loves someone, He draws them near through hardship and loneliness, painful as it is, often becomes the doorway to the most beautiful closeness with Him. So when you feel alone, read this surah. Let the words fall like gentle rain over the deserts of your heart. Remember that even the Prophet himself felt that silence, that waiting, that ache. But from that silence came one of the most beautiful surahs in the Qur'an, one that has carried countless hearts back to peace. The same Allah who comforted his messenger is the one who will comfort you. The same words that healed him are meant to heal you too. And maybe, just maybe, your loneliness isn't a punishment at all. Maybe it's a sacred pause, a moment where Allah clears away everything else so that he can meet you where no one else can. Keynote 2. Sometimes we mistake the absence of people for the absence of love, but true love, the kind that anchors your soul, can only come from the one who created it. The surah reminds us that when the world falls silent, Allah is still speaking to you. His mercy moves quietly through your life, through the moments you thought were empty. Every unanswered call, every door that closed, every friendship that faded was part of a divine redirection. He removes what was never meant for you, so that your heart can finally make space for what is eternal. Loneliness is heavy because we were created to belong, but our belonging was never meant to be in temporary things. We were made to belong to Allah. The surah reminds us of this belonging by saying, "And he found you lost and guided you." Those words pierce the illusion that we must always be surrounded to be safe. Allah is the one who guides through solitude, who leads the lost heart through the dark valley of uncertainty until it finds peace in his remembrance. The loneliness that once hurt becomes a teacher, showing you what love truly means. It's not about being seen by people, it's about being known by the one who made you. And so when you sit alone and open that surah, you begin to feel something shift inside. You realize that the same silence that once scared you has become your sanctuary. You realize that the same pain that once broke you has become your prayer. And in that moment, you understand you were never truly alone. You were being refined, drawn closer, and transformed. Allah was with you all along, waiting for your heart to turn toward him in surrender so he could whisper again, "Your Lord has not forsaken you, nor has he forgotten." Keynote 3, every soul will taste loneliness, but not every soul will understand its purpose. Some run from it, others drown in it, but the believer learns to sit with it, because in that stillness, Allah speaks. When you read this surah, you are reminded that your worth is not measured by who stays beside you, but by the one who never leaves. This surah is the embrace of Allah for every believer who feels unseen, every seeker who feels tired, every heart that wonders if it still matters. It teaches you that the night of despair will always be followed by the dawn of hope, that the heart which breaks in front of Allah will always be lifted higher than before, that your story is not over, even when it feels silent. The same Allah who promised his messenger light after darkness promises you the same. So when you feel alone, read this surah. Not as history, but as your own reflection. Let it remind you that every silence carries a message, every tear is recorded, and every heart that calls upon him will be answered, because Allah never leaves his servants alone in their pain. He walks with them through it until that pain becomes prayer, and that prayer becomes peace. Sometimes we mistake the absence of people for the absence of love, but the truth is, the truest form of love, the kind that steadies your heart and gives meaning to your pain, does not come from people at all. It comes from the one who created love itself. It comes from Allah. When you feel alone, when the silence grows too loud, there is a surah in the Qur'an that was revealed for hearts exactly like yours. A surah that came down in the stillness of sorrow, in a moment when even the most beloved felt the ache of separation. It begins not with rebuke, not with warning, but with a divine oath of beauty and tenderness. Allah swears by the morning brightness and by the night when it covers with darkness. And in those words, he reminds us that both light and darkness are sacred, that both have purpose, that both are part of his design. There are days when your life feels like morning, full of clarity, laughter, and warmth. And there are nights that feel endless, where tears become your only companion. Yet in both, Allah is present. He is the one who made the morning and the night, and if he is the maker of both, then he is with you in both. Imagine that. The Prophet of mercy, sitting in silence, longing for revelation, and then receiving words so filled with love that they healed centuries of hearts. Sometimes when we recite that surah, we rush through it without feeling its weight. But if you close your eyes and let every word sink into your heart, you begin to understand by the morning brightness. It's a promise that the darkness will lift, and by the night when it covers, it's an acknowledgement that darkness has its place, that it too is part of the divine rhythm of life. Your Lord has not forsaken you, nor has he forgotten. It's reassurance that the silence you hear from the heavens is not neglect, but a gentle pause filled with wisdom, and the hereafter is better for you than the first. It's a reminder that what awaits you, whether in this life or the next, is better than what you've lost. Every verse is like a hand reaching through the unseen, holding your heart, telling you not to give up. We live in a time where everyone is connected, yet more disconnected than ever. The more we scroll, the more we feel empty. He has been taking care of you long before you even knew how to ask. We often forget that loneliness itself can be a gift. It's in those quiet moments that you hear your most honest thoughts, that you pray the most sincere prayers, that you begin to truly know yourself and your Lord. The companions of the Prophet used to seek solitude to connect with Allah. The prophets themselves retreated into silence before revelation. The mountain of Hira was a place of isolation before it became a place of divine connection. So perhaps your loneliness is your Hira. Perhaps Allah is preparing your heart for something greater, cleansing it of distractions so that it can receive His light. There is a sweetness hidden in this surah for those who contemplate it deeply. When Allah swears by the morning brightness, He is promising that the darkness is not permanent. When He reminds you that He has not forsaken you, He is promising that your story is not over. When He says that what comes later will be better than what came before, He is giving you hope that your future holds mercy you cannot yet imagine. When He asks, did He not find you lost and guide you? He is reminding you to look back at every time you thought you wouldn't survive, and yet you did because He guided you. He carried you. If you sit quietly and let these truths settle, your loneliness begins to feel lighter. You begin to see that what you called emptiness was actually space being made for growth, for revelation, for peace. Maybe Allah emptied your life of certain people or plans because He wanted to fill it with Himself. Maybe the silence you dreaded was the space where He was preparing to speak. The Prophet once said that the hearts rust like iron, and that remembrance polishes them. Perhaps loneliness is the polishing. Perhaps it's Allah's way of clearing the dust of this world so that His reflection can shine in your heart again. The Qur'an is not just a book, it is a conversation. When you read this surah, it is as if Allah Himself is speaking directly to you, reminding you of your worth, your purpose, your connection. He tells you not to grieve over what has been taken, because what He gives in its place will be better. Your loneliness, once transformed, becomes empathy. Your pain becomes purpose. You learn to comfort others with the same comfort you received, because in Islam, healing is not meant to stay within you. It is meant to spread through you. So when you feel alone again, and you surely will, remember this surah. Remember that the morning always follows the night. Remember that the silence of heaven is not the absence of love, but the preparation of mercy. Remember that Allah never leaves a heart empty, except to fill it with something far greater. And when you open the Qur'an and recite those sacred words, feel them as they descend upon your heart, washing away despair, planting seeds of peace. For every believer who reads them in pain finds the same comfort that the Prophet found, that your Lord has not forsaken you, nor has He forgotten. And perhaps as the words settle into your heart, you will realize that what you once called loneliness was in fact the most intimate form of divine company you could ever know. Sometimes you think your loneliness means something is wrong with you, but in reality, your loneliness might be the most spiritual season of your life. It is in solitude that the soul awakens, that the heart begins to remember who it was made for. The world tells you that being alone is weakness, that happiness is found in constant company, but Allah teaches something else, that the most profound peace comes when you discover His companionship. When Allah said, your Lord has not forsaken you, nor has He forgotten, He wasn't just comforting one man in history. He was comforting all of humanity. He was speaking to every person who has ever cried in the dark, every believer who has ever wondered why their prayers seem to echo into emptiness. Those words were meant to reach you across centuries, across languages, through every heartbreak and every moment of despair, they are meant to whisper to your heart that you are still seen, still loved, still remembered. Loneliness hurts because we were not made to be disconnected. The human heart was created to attach, but it was never meant to attach to temporary things. Every time we tie our worth to the approval of people, to the comfort of a relationship, to the attention of friends, or the validation of society, we place our peace in fragile hands. And Allah, in His mercy, sometimes removes those attachments, not to break us, but to bring us back. Sometimes He empties your circle so you can fill your heart with His remembrance. Sometimes He lets people walk away so that you can finally stop searching for love in faces that cannot sustain it. Because real love, eternal love, cannot abandon you, it cannot die, and it cannot forget. That love is found only in Allah. There is something profoundly healing about realizing that the same Lord who revealed these words to His prophet is the Lord who watches over your pain today. You are not an afterthought in His plan. Your story was written with divine precision. Every loss, every delay, every night of tears serving a higher purpose, Allah says, and He found you, lost and guided you. That is not only a verse of the past, it is a promise that continues. He found you when your faith was fading. He found you when your heart was tired. He found you when you thought no one saw your struggle. And He guided you, not always to what you wanted, but to what you needed. Think about that. Every closed door that made you cry might have been the very door that saved you. Every friendship that ended might have been a mercy you didn't yet understand. Every unanswered prayer might have been a shield protecting you from something you could not see, because Allah knows what you do not know. He sees what your heart cannot grasp. And when He says your Lord has not forsaken you, He is asking you to trust the unseen, to believe in the wisdom that hides inside your pain. Loneliness, when seen through the eyes of faith, becomes a sacred classroom. It teaches you what no teacher can. It strips away illusions. It reveals your dependency on the divine. It reminds you that the only companionship that never fails is the companionship of Allah when you are alone and the world feels distant. That is the perfect time to open the Qur'an, to recite the verses that once comforted the messenger himself. The more we chase validation, the more unseen we become. But when you turn away from the noise and open the Qur'an, something remarkable happens. You feel a presence that cannot be described, only experienced. It's the presence of Allah, the one who knows your loneliness better than you do. The one who was with you when you cried into your pillow, when you smiled through pain, when you felt unseen in a crowd. He knows. He always knows. The surah teaches us that guidance often comes in silence, that faith grows strongest, not in comfort, but in discomfort. When everything is stripped away, when the heart has nowhere left to turn, that's when it finally turns upward. That's when you begin to understand what it means to rely on Allah alone. People might leave you, life might disappoint you, but Allah remains constant. He is Al-Wali, the guardian, the protecting friend. He is Al-Latif, the subtle one who works through details you can't even perceive. And He is our Rahman, the one whose mercy envelops even your loneliness. The surah doesn't only comfort, it transforms. It teaches you to look at your solitude not as a prison, but as a sanctuary. Maybe you used to think that being alone meant being unloved. But now, when you sit in that stillness, you begin to feel something sacred. Peace. The peace that comes from knowing that Allah's gaze is upon you, that His mercy surrounds you, that your breath, your heartbeat, your tears are all seen and recorded by Him. When the world grows quiet, you finally hear the rhythm of your soul saying, La ilaha illa Allah. And in that moment, you realize you were never truly alone. When Allah says, did He not find you an orphan and give you refuge? It is not just a historical reference. It's a mirror for your own story. Haven't there been moments when you felt lost and yet somehow found safety? Haven't there been times when you had nothing left yet you were sustained? Those were not coincidences. Those were signs. Every time you were comforted after heartbreak, every time provision came when you least expected it, every time peace arrived without reason, that was Allah giving you refuge. He tells you that no tear is wasted, no moment forgotten. He tells you that your dua in the night, whispered between sobs, is more beloved to Him than the loudest of praises uttered without sincerity. And he tells you through this surah that your loneliness can be transformed into worship if you allow your heart to turn toward him in it. It's easy to love Allah when life feels full, when hearts are warm and hands are held, but the truest form of love is discovered in the quiet when no one else is watching, when you sit alone and choose him still. That is what this surah invites you to do, to choose Allah again and again, even when the world feels far, to trust that his plan is not against you, but for you, to know that every silence carries his wisdom and every heartbreak carries his mercy. When Allah says, "So do not oppress the orphan and do not repel the one who asks," he is reminding you of the responsibility that comes with being comforted. Once you have been healed by his words, you are meant to become a source of healing for others. Every soul will taste loneliness, but not every soul will understand its purpose. There are those who will run from it, trying to drown it in distractions, and there are those who will sit with it until they begin to hear something sacred within its silence. Loneliness, when looked at through the eyes of faith, is not a curse. It is one of the most profound gifts Allah gives to his servants. It is a moment when he draws the curtain of the world so that you can finally see his light clearly. It is his way of removing the noise so that your heart can rediscover its original rhythm, the one that beats with remembrance of him. There is a surah that holds the secret to this feeling, a surah that descends like healing rain upon a dry heart. It was revealed to bring comfort, not just to the messenger, but to everyone who will ever sit in the quiet and whisper, "Ya Allah, I feel so alone." The world teaches us to fear solitude, to believe that being alone means being unloved. But the Qur'an teaches us something radically different. It tells us that there is beauty in isolation when it leads you to Allah. The Prophet felt that silence in the early days of revelation. He felt the pause, the waiting, the uncertainty. And in response to that ache, Allah revealed verses that would become a refuge for every heart to come by the morning brightness, and by the night when it covers with darkness. Your Lord has not forsaken you, nor has he forgotten. These are not just verses to recite. They are words to live by. They are words to breathe in when your chest tightens with sadness, when the room feels too empty, when the weight of the world feels too heavy to carry alone. There is a reason Allah begins by swearing by the morning and the night. It's to remind you that life is a rhythm of both light and darkness, of presence and absence, of ease and hardship. The same Lord who created dawn also created dusk, and both are signs of his mercy. Your life will never be one long morning of light, nor will it be one endless night. The alternation between them is where growth happens. When the night covers, Allah is still there, even when you cannot see him. His silence is not neglect, it is nurturing. Just as the seed must sit in the darkness of soil before it breaks into life, so too must your heart sometimes sit in the darkness of loneliness before it blooms with faith. The surah continues to whisper truths that many hearts forget. And the hereafter is better for you than the first. What a promise that is. Every time you lose something in this life, every time you are left behind, every time you are misunderstood or unseen, this verse calls out to you. It tells you that what is coming will always be better, that Allah never takes without the intention to give something greater, that your loneliness is not an ending. It is a passage. It is a bridge that leads you towards something far more beautiful than you can now imagine. When you sit alone and read this surah, the world begins to quiet around you. You begin to notice the beating of your heart, the rise and fall of your breath, the tears that rest behind your eyes. And slowly you begin to realize that Allah has been there through every beat, every breath, every tear. You remember moments when you were lost, confused, unsure, yet somehow guided through. You remember how you were provided for when you thought you had nothing left. You remember how peace found you in moments when logic said it shouldn't. And in that remembering, the words, "Your Lord has not forsaken you, nor has he forgotten," begin to make sense. Allah never forgets his servants. He never turns away. Even when you sin, even when you neglect prayer, even when you fall again and again, he still calls you back. He still leaves open the door of repentance. That is love beyond comprehension. People may turn cold, hearts may drift apart, but Allah's mercy remains constant. The surah teaches you to shift your perception of love From temporary human affection to divine constancy, it teaches you that you are never truly alone, because the one who created you walks beside you, listens to you, answers you in ways you cannot always see. Loneliness for a believer becomes a mirror. It reflects the state of your heart back to you. It shows you what you truly depend on, what you truly love, what you truly fear. If your loneliness breaks you, it is because you have anchored your peace in something that was never meant to hold it. But if your loneliness guides you to prayer, to reflection, to dhikr, then it becomes your greatest blessing. It becomes a conversation between you and Allah that no one else can interrupt. The Prophet used to retreat to the cave of Hira, away from people, away from distractions, to sit in the stillness and connect with his Lord. That solitude became the birthplace of revelation. Maybe your solitude can become the birthplace of transformation. The surah continues with words that pierce the veil of hopelessness. Did he not find you an orphan and give you refuge? These words remind you that Allah has always been there, sheltering you when you didn't even realize it. Think back to moments in your own life, times when you felt you had no one, yet somehow you were carried. Times when you thought everything was falling apart, yet in hindsight you see how perfectly everything came together. That was not coincidence. That was divine care. Allah was providing for you, protecting you, loving you, even when you were unaware. Every believer walks through seasons of emptiness. Sometimes the heart feels like a house that has been abandoned, its walls echoing with memories of laughter now gone. But Allah can fill that emptiness with something infinitely more lasting. When you open the Qur'an and read this surah, you are not reading ancient words, you are entering a living conversation. Allah is speaking to you right now through those verses. He is saying, you are not forgotten, you are not forsaken. What I have planned for you is better than what you have lost. And if you let those words settle into the cracks of your heart, they begin to heal what the world could not. The beauty of faith is that it turns even pain into purpose. What was once a wound becomes a window through which light enters. What was once isolation becomes intimacy with Allah. There will be nights when you cry and no one sees. There will be mornings when your heart feels heavy and no one understands. But every tear, every sigh, every quiet dua you make in the middle of that solitude is seen by the one who sees everything. He records it, he values it, he responds to it in the most perfect of ways. And when the time is right, he will replace your loneliness with a peace so deep that you will understand why it had to be this way. The surah also reminds us of our responsibility once we have been comforted, after saying, did he not find you lost and guide you? Allah commands, so as for the orphan, do not oppress him, and as for the one who asks, do not repel him. This means that once Allah has filled your emptiness, you must use that fullness to serve others. The pain you endured was not meaningless. It was meant to make you compassionate. It was meant to teach you how to hold the hands of others walking through their own nights. When you comfort someone who feels alone, you are living the spirit of this surah. You are becoming the answer to someone else's dua.